Hi, today in this tutorial, I will be showing you how to make appealing plots using Xmgrace. So how to present your plot in the best way possible. We will start where we left off in tutorial 1 the last time, that is where we have created a line plot using Xmgrace. Here I've got the line plot.agr. The .agr is the file format using which can be opened using Xmgrace and edited, so the plot changes and all can be made there. Let's just open up the plot with Xmgrace lineplot.agr, and that generates the Xmgrace plotting window. Let's just open it up a little. And there's the scroll bar, you can just scroll up and down. So let's see what things that we can actually change in this plot. One, there's a lot of white space in the plot, and it is not ideal because you're not making the best use of your plotting software, right? I mean, you want to present them your data, your plot, not the white spaces around that. So we need to get rid of that, and we will do that. And I would recommend doing it towards the end, after you make all the changes to the axes labels, the frame of the plot, so that you know what the size of the plot will be at the end once you increase the size of the labels or the tick labels or the axis labels. You'll know how big a figure you have, and then depending on that you will know how much of the white space needs to be removed. So I would recommend doing this at the end, and we'll do that at the end. What we need to do right now is to make some changes to the way this plot looks. So this plot is technically correct. There's nothing wrong with the plot, except that it's not very appealing. If you see, it's all very, the colors, or not the colors, the circles here are very light. The frame is very thin, like the frame of the plot, or the label, the axis labels or the tick labels. The font sizes are too small, and the fonts are also not super appealing. This becomes really important in terms of readability of the plot, especially when you're trying to generate a figure that you want to publish in a paper. So the figure you generate is going to be reduced in size, right? So you'll have like a very small figure in the plot. So if you want the reader to be able to see what's happening in your plot, to look at the axes labels and the tick labels and to read them, you have to generate a plot that allows for such readability. So what we are going to do is look at the frame of the plot, the labels, the tick labels and the axis labels, and the font sizes, and change them one by one. So these are just the recommended settings from my side. There are no hard and fast rules, but these are definitely some of the best practices with Xmgrace. So let's start with changing the overall frame of the plot. And you can find that in plot, graph appearance. So that basically tells you how your graph looks like. So we're in main titles. If you have a title for your plot, I would recommend changing the font to Helvetica Bold. And the font size should be 150. That translates to approximately an 8-point font. So I would recommend the character size to be 150. And for the subtitle, you can have a smaller size of 100, but that should be okay. Just click apply, although we don't have any titles. Then frame type is closed. Let's see what would happen if you have half open. Clearly nothing happened. Break top. I don't think these settings apply for our plot, so it's fine. It's a closed frame. You can use it in some other cases though. I'll discuss that in some of the later tutorials. So as we can see, the width of the frame is just 1 and it's very light. We want to change it to 3. That looks much better, right? And we don't want to like fill the frame or anything with random colors, so we're good. Just click accept. So we've made that change. And if you want to save each of the changes that you make intermittently, why don't you go to File and click Save. That will save it as that plot. Or if you want to save the changes as a different file, you have to go and click Save As and give a new file name. The next thing we want to do is look at the axes. So let's go to Plot and let's go to Axis Properties. Okay, so the x-axis 0 to 6, I think we're good with that. that range is fine, it's ideal. The major spacing is 1. It basically tells you where you want your major ticks. If I make it 2, you'll have them like that, but we want 1. We want to label as many as possible and also make sure it's not too overcrowded. And the label is this. So these are the options that tell you whether to display the tick labels or not. We want to display them. And the tick label properties, the font, we don't want Times Roman, we want Helvetica bold. Click apply. So these are the tick label fonts. Now the axis label, the label, again, we want to change it to Helvetica bold, increase the character size to 150 because it translates to an 8-point font. And the side, it's the normal side, which is the, it's just the location here. This is the normal for x-axis and this is the normal for y-axis. And the bar properties, let's just raise it up to 3 and apply. As you can see, the size here has changed, but we need to still change the size of the tick labels. So let's move on to tick labels and the label size 150. You apply them. Now they're all of the same size. That is the ideal size. And we want the ticks pointing in on both the sides. Well, it's just a personal preference. If you'd like them pointing in one side, that's okay. But in some cases, you might want them to point in both the directions. So if you select out, as you can see, the ticks start pointing out, but we don't want out. We prefer pointing them in. And then draw on both sides. Again, the normal side is this particular side. As you can see, the top ticks on the x-axis have disappeared. And the opposite side is the one above. This is the normal, so you don't have them on the normal anymore, but we want on both sides. So let's just keep the ticks on both sides. As you can see, the tick sizes have still not increased, and as compared to the frame size, they're like pretty thin. So we want people to be able to read or look at where the ticks are. So why don't we increase the line width of the major ticks and the minor ticks? So let's just change all of them to 3, and that should be it. Here you go. That looks much better, right? Okay, so we have applied the changes. Now let's move to y-axis. And we're happy with the range 0 to 12. And so if you notice, when we moved from x-axis to y-axis, the tab that stays on here is the last tab you looked at when you were in the x-axis. So why don't we like start making changes from where we are? Anyway, we have to make all of these changes. So we changed the tick sizes, then tick labels, and change the font to Helvetica bold. Make all of these changes that we made in the x-axis. Again, change it to Helvetica bold and apply. So as you can see, we have the ticks, the tick labels, the axis labels, the fonts, and the font size is changed. If you're happy with the spacing, I'm definitely happy with it, so I'm not going to touch it. But if you're not happy with it, you can always change the major spacing to 1. And as you can see, it gets a little overcrowded, so I would just prefer to leave it at 2. Unless you absolutely want to show everything, you can go for 1. It's just a personal choice. So we are good with the axes properties. So let's just click accept, and we did that. Also, one more thing, let's just go back. I want to show something here. Ideally, it is recommended not to capitalize your axes labels, unless of course you have a proper noun, or you have some sort of an angle or a distance or a symbol that is capital, that is a capital symbol in nature. It's a capitalized version of the symbol by itself. Ideally, it's recommended not to capitalize the axes labels. So let's just correct that. So we have this. We're good with the axes, the plot, but then the main data still doesn't look great, right? I mean, it's just like too light. So let's just go to set appearance, where you set the appearance of the data. And do we want to increase the size of the circle? We could do that. It's not necessary, but if you want, you can do that. But what we want to do mainly is to increase the thickness of the circle. So why don't we go to symbols, and the symbol outline, you have a straight line. Okay, the style is that. You don't want broken circles, that's fine. So let's increase the width to 2, or if you want, you could change it to 3. That looks much better. I mean, it's very appealing. Unless, of course, you have a lot of data that's overlapping, in which case you don't want the circle size to be this big, or even like the width to be 3, maybe you just want it to be 2 or 1.5. That's a preference. And you have the line. Let's do something with the line. The line color is red, contrasting, which is good. So if you want to change the color of the line to something else, you could do that here. We don't want brown. Let's just go to black, and that would be a black line there. But it's not thick, so let's change the width to 3, and this is the line. Now, if you want to fill the circles with a color, you can always do that. So you have the circle. Now go to symbols. The symbol fill, you can have red, and pattern says none, so you have to pick a pattern. This, like, it colors it completely. So pick this pattern and select apply, accept. So these are your data points. They look good, they're fully colored, it's perfect, and you have a line going through them, and you can actually compute the slope and the intercept by looking at something in transformation here, which I'll go through in later tutorials. But for now, we are just focused on presenting the plot well, presenting our data well. Now that we've made all the changes that we can make to this plot, the one thing that's remaining to be done is clearing out the white spaces. So in order to do that, let's go to edit. Hopefully it's arrange graphs. Yes, it's arrange graphs. So this graph is selected. Yes, is what we want. And the page offsets are what determine how much space needs to be left out on each side of the page: the top, bottom, right, and left. Top, bottom, right, and left. There you go. So for the top one, let's just see what happens if we make it 0.1 instead of 0.15. We still have a lot of space left, right? So maybe we can make it 0.1. That's not ideal because the data is starting to get cut off. Maybe 0.2. Yeah, 0.2 is perfect. So just play around with these numbers. So 0.02 is perfect for the top margin. Then let's go to the right and 0.1, maybe let's try 0.2. There you go, 0.2 works. Then you can actually give even more or less space, like 0.18. It keeps going in closer and closer, 0.15. There you go. So you can specify that and then like play around with the numbers. Then let's go to the bottom margin. Let's just make it 0.1, and that's 0.095 is still fine. I don't want to push it too much because you have a label here, so the space you can cut off is like slightly smaller. And on this side, let's just try to do 0.1, and that works. We cannot really push beyond 0.1, can we now? Okay, cool. And then click accept. By doing this, we have effectively removed as much white space as we can from the plot. And here we go. In this case, if you want to actually make the measure spacing 1, it's a little overcrowded, but not too much as before. So these are the benefits of removing the white spaces. You basically stretch out your plot and you have more space to show your plot in a better way. But I'd still like to keep it at 2. So yeah, here we have the modified plot. And why don't we go save it? And we want to save it as a PDF, remember? So print setup, PDF, the same name, yes. Let's pick a custom size. And if you want a 3.3 inch white figure, this would be the ideal. I'm just used to doing this, so I just know what numbers to type in. And this will be your figure. Nothing's being cut out. If the figure is being cut out when you save it as a PDF, you will always get a message that says part of the figure is cut out. Then you know that, okay, you need to modify the dimensions, the figure dimensions. Now click accept, and let's not forget to click print. And we can just close it. If we look, we've got line plotter PDF. Hopefully this works. There you go. This is the modified plot and it looks much, much better than our previous version. I hope you really enjoyed this video, this tutorial, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments, and have a great day.